With Labor's push towards an Indigenous voice to the Parliament and its decision to scrap the cashless welfare card, the Albanese government loves to tell us all about their listening and representing Australia's Indigenous communities. But the reality is a long way away from their talk in Canberra. As those who live in remote communities tell my next guest, they feel vulnerable, alone, and they're worried about the rise of alcohol-fuelled violence as the NT and federal governments move to increase the availability and access to grog in these areas. Today in Tennant Creek, a town of around 3,000 residents, halfway between Alice Springs and Darwin in the Northern Territory, a group of local Indigenous women have held a march against domestic violence, declaring they're fed up with the lack of action to help them from both state and federal governments. Now, are you going to see this issue run tonight on the big news programs? I doubt it. But someone who was there wanted to make sure we covered it here on Credlin. And that someone, CLP Senator Jacinta joins me now. Welcome to the program as always, Jacinta. You were on the ground in Tennant Creek today. You marched alongside these women. Tell us what their fight's about.
Well, they've got a huge concern for domestic and family violence in the community here in Tennant Creek, but also surrounding communities throughout the Barkly region. A group of women themselves, community-led group, decided to conduct a survey and run that survey through Tennant Creek as well as those surrounding regions to gauge from community members how they felt about domestic and family violence and sexual abuse in an honest way, in a way that, you know, they wanted to understand exactly what was going on, and people were very happy to come forward. So just over 400 surveys went out, and they're starting to get some of those results back now from the surveys.
I've spent a bit of time around Tennant Creek. I want your view. I mean, how much is grog driving this violence?
Look, alcohol's a huge factor. It always has been a huge factor. In the last, horrible murder-suicide that took place just north of Alice Springs, where alcohol was involved with that incident. The uncle of the woman that was murdered said that he felt as though alcohol has always played a huge factor. He highlighted to me, he said, the day the grog bans were lifted was the day that she and her baby were murdered. So it's a huge concern for a lot of community members. It's the reason why I'm drafting this bill to look at how we can put a handbrake on the access of alcohol in those communities. It's why I was happy to co-sign a motion put forward by our other Senator for the Northern Territory, Senator Mullandiri McCarthy, to have a look at, to inquire about the impacts of alcohol in communities and the Stronger Futures legislation that's been drawing to an end.
Talk to me about the police, because there's not been a conviction, I'm told, on the issue of child abuse in the Northern Territory for the last 9 months. Now, I don't believe there's been no instances of child abuse in a period in and around that. We both know that's not true. So is this that authorities aren't doing the job we pay them to do?
So I think there is the police in general they've shown that there is a huge lack of confidence in the current commissioner. There was a survey conducted by the police union that demonstrated this was the case. There are a lot of police coming to me and coming to me privately, obviously, because they're concerned about their jobs. But they don't feel as though they're able to carry out the job to the best of their ability because they don't have confidence in their leadership. And this is obvious. This is clearly trickling down on the ground. I'm hearing there's very low conviction rates, if any at all, in Central Australia for child abuse. And this is unacceptable given the fact that we have kids running around our streets at night all the time, all hours of the night and the morning, clearly not being taken care of. Any kid in that environment, it is clear why they're there, because there is abuse involved in their lives. And so you have to ask, what is going on for our police to feel so restricted in terms of trying to do their job correctly and prioritise the lives of these vulnerable children and certainly women in these communities.
Let me just underscore what you just said there about that survey, because it's nearly 80%, this is a police union survey, of territory police officers who say they don't have confidence in their own commissioner, Jamie Chalker. So you're giving me the impression that this is grassroots, rank and file uniformed police who want more done, who are supportive of some of these moves you're talking about in terms of alcohol reduction and limiting violence in these communities, but they're being let down by the brass in Darwin.
That's exactly how they're feeling, and this has been ongoing for some time now. It's also concerning from the perspective of someone like myself who is in a federal position, leadership position, to understand what's actually going on. I'm told a lot about, there are individuals in our communities who are finding about incidences taking place within our community, where it might be a sexual assault of a 13-year-old. Certainly the murder-suicide issue was known to the public before through the grapevine, before it was known through the media. And there appears to be a sort of blanket over media underreporting of what's actually going on, so the public can really understand what's going on. And that's not good enough.
More strength to your arm. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter.